Just when everyone thought Xiao Yin was about to stop, a white jade bottle suddenly appeared in his hand. It was the same bottle that had previously sealed Su Bo, the stagnant heaven bottle. However, this was not the stagnant heaven bottle in the possession of the Qingyin Divine Court. Several years ago, during the world-ending war, the stagnant heaven bottle held by the Qingyin Divine Court shattered. Some fragments were obtained by Xiao Yin, who later had them reforged by Lin Dong. Now, the stagnant heaven bottle had been restored, and it appeared to be an improved version. As soon as Xiao Yin took out the stagnant heaven bottle, others immediately noticed, including Luo Li at the main hall of the Domain Celestial Court. However, they all assumed that Xiao Yin was planning to release Su Bo in order to cease hostilities, so there was no significant reaction. But what Xiao Yin did next completely took everyone by surprise. Xiao Yin opened the mouth of the stagnant heaven bottle, and a beam of light shot out, revealing Su Bo. Just as Su Bo emerged from the bottle, Xiao Yin's palm landed directly on his head. "Let's cooperate. Don't move, or the cost will be heavy." Xiao Yin's cold voice echoed in Su Bo's ears, stunning him. Meanwhile, Xiao Yin swiftly continued with what he had to do, as everything needed to be completed in a very short time. Xiao Yin controlled Su Bo with one hand, while with the other, he aimed the now-empty stagnant heaven bottle at the massive mirror below. At this moment, the malevolent spirit in the void mirror reacted immediately, sensing danger. However, Xiao Yan's actions were so quick that the spirit didn't have time to do anything. A white light already enveloped the mirror from the stagnant heaven bottle. Boom! The white light from the stagnant heaven bottle reflected off the mirror's surface. Instead of behaving like Xiao Yan's previous attack, this light grew exponentially as there was another light source within the void mirror. The two light sources, positioned symmetrically, formed a cone with the mirror at its center, which instantly solidified, trapping everything within, including the malevolent spirit. "Shrink it quickly." After solidifying the spirit and the mirror, Xiao Yin shouted at Su Bo, who immediately complied. Using the power of the space Tao, Su Bo shrank the entire mirror, until only a smooth mirror about a foot in size remained before Xiao Yin. "Pleasure working with you." Xiao Yin gave a faint smile, watching as Su Bo reduced the mirror with the space Tao. He then flipped the stagnant heaven bottle and sealed both Su Bo and the shrunken mirror inside once more. Xiao Yin completed all his actions in the span of a breath. By the time the surrounding experts and Luo Li realized what had happened, the massive mirror that had been hovering in midair had vanished. Only the figure in black stood tall, gazing down upon everyone like an emperor. Luo Li could hardly believe that Xiao Yin had managed to accomplish such a feat in an instant. It was simply unbelievable. "You lost," Xiao Yin said, lifting the stagnant heaven bottle before Luo Li at the main hall. "Do you think this means you've defeated the Domain Celestial Court?" "You're sorely mistaken," Luo Li, seemingly unwilling to accept the sudden turn of events, shouted at the 20 or so heavenly supreme experts above the Domain Celestial Court. Upon hearing Luo Li's command, the 20 or so heavenly supremes swallowed hard. With the two strongest experts of the Domain Celestial Court already subdued by the Flame Emperor, and with them being weaker than even the perfected Heavenly Supreme, they knew that if they faced Xiao Yin, it would only end in their destruction. However, having sworn allegiance to the Domain Celestial Court, they understood their fates were in the hands of those in charge. Even though they knew they had no chance against Xiao Yin, they grit their teeth and charged at him. "It seems Mu Chun has attracted some righteous people," Xiao Yin muttered, watching the approaching experts. He raised his hand, preparing to unleash his flame power, but just then, his brow furrowed. The two women who descended from the sky were stunningly beautiful, their appearances enough to captivate anyone. Upon arriving at the Domain Celestial Court, they immediately launched a surprise attack, sending several heavenly supreme experts flying. The sudden appearance of these two threw the other heavenly supremes of the Domain Celestial Court into disarray. However, the most shocked of all was Xiao Yin, for these two were none other than Xun'er and Kai Lin. How did they get here? Xiao Yin wondered. Boom. After striking a heavenly supreme expert in the upper tier, a figure dressed in green appeared beside Xiao Yin. It was Xun'er. "Big brother Xiao Yin, we've come to help you." Xun'er said with a mischievous smile. Why did you get into a fight with the domain celestial court? Another voice echoed, and soon Kai Lin appeared beside Xiao Yin. She glanced at the other domain celestial court experts around them and said, We sense disturbances in the forces of heaven and earth in the boundless fire domain. We were just looking for someone to ask something important. I didn't expect to trigger the domain celestial court's response. Xiao Yin glanced at the two women beside him, then turned his gaze toward Luo Li at the main hall. She had already risen and was locking her gaze onto Xiao Yin. Whoosh! At that moment, another piercing sound cut through the air. A familiar figure swiftly appeared from the distant horizon and landed beside Xiao Yin and the others. It was Lin Dong. Looks like brother Xiao Yin has already taken care of his troubles, Lin Dong said, surveying the wreckage of the domain celestial court. We also owe brother Lin Dong for holding off those two battle formation masters, Xiao Yin responded. Defeating them was no easy task. I just took advantage of their exhaustion to trap them. They'll be stuck for at least half an hour, Lin Dong said, then turned his attention to Luo Li in the distance. They had already defeated all the domain celestial court experts, and it was time for Luo Li to fulfill her promise. Luo Li, we've done our part. It's time for us to meet the servant, Xiao Yin called out. However, as Xiao Yan's words fell, both he and Lin Dong's eyes widened in shock. They saw Luo Li at the main hall slowly raise her palm, and an overwhelming force, one that made both of them shiver, enveloped the entire world. This power did not cause any dramatic sound or disturbance in the environment, but at this moment, the fate of everything rested in Luo Li's hands. It was the power of the central hub. Luo Li, is this how your domain celestial court operates? Both Xiao Yin and Lin Dong's expressions grew grim as they realized that if there was anything in this world they could not oppose right now, it was the central hub. Did the two of you elders make a mistake? We haven't violated the promise. In fact, it was you who disregarded the rules first, Luo Li said coldly, her eyes fixed on Xiao Yin and Lin Dong. It was supposed to be just the two of you fighting, but now, others have joined in? Xiao Yin and the others immediately understood. It seemed Luo Li had seized on the flaw in their battle and was using it as leverage to renegotiate their previous agreement. And with the power of the central hub in her control, even if Xiao Yin and Lin Dong teamed up, they had no chance of winning. At this point, the situation had shifted entirely in Luo Li's favor. Whether by reasoning or sheer power, she was in a dominant position. Apologies, elders, but I have no choice but to detain you for now. Once Muchen returns, he will give you both justice, Luo Li said, and with that, she activated the central hub, preparing to seal off the entire area, including the domain celestial court, and strip away the last of Xiao Yin and Lin Dong's powers. However, as Luo Li initiated the central hub, a serene beam of supreme light suddenly erupted from the heavens above the domain celestial court. This ray of light was as blinding as the noonday sun, covering the entire continent of the domain celestial court. And as the light swept over, Luo Li realized something terrifying. Her control over the central hub was suddenly unstable. Xiao Yin and Lin Dong were both momentarily stunned. Then, they suddenly felt the ruler power that Luo Li had previously stripped from them, using the central path gradually returning. This unexpected development caused them to immediately glance upward, toward the horizon above the domain celestial court. There, they saw a woman in a white dress standing barefoot, her forehead illuminated by a ring-shaped light. This same light appeared in her strikingly beautiful eyes. It was as if she was a goddess who controlled the very source of all things. Lin Dong was equally shocked. The goddess standing at the edge of the domain celestial court sky was none other than Ling Qingzhu. It had been Ling Qingzhu who stopped Luo Li earlier, neutralizing the power-stripping effect that Luo Li had cast on Xiao Yin, Lin Dong, and the others. Attack now. She might not be able to hold on much longer. Lin Dong quickly understood the situation. He knew that Ling Qingzhu had temporarily interfered with Luo Li's control over the central path because she herself had walked the same path, similar to Lin Dong. If Mu Chun were here, such interference would have been impossible, but Luo Li, not having walked the central path, was vulnerable to this kind of disruption. Mu Chun had forced Luo Li into the central path through a tough hand, but this had ironically created a loophole that others could exploit. However, even with this loophole, Luo Li was still the one in control of the central path, the one who governed everything. In contrast, although Ling Qingzhu had completed the central path, she had never truly touched the core of it, so her interference had its limits. As Lindong's shout rang out, Xiao Yin and the others immediately made their move. They sped toward the main hall of the domain celestial court. Having regained their ruler power, their actions were far more formidable than before. Xiao Yin and Lindong used the rules to try to seal off Luo Li's abilities, but such a seal could not hold for long against someone of her stature as a central lord. Xiao Yin, leave this to me. You focus on freeing Shi, Lindong said, and Xiao Yin nodded in response. Their actions were now a race against time. With the ruler power restored, it was far easier for Xiao Yin to track Shi's location. However, when he finally pinpointed where Shi was, he was once again stunned. Shi was located deep beneath the domain celestial court, at a depth that reached what had once been the lower dimensional world. If Xiao Yin were to rank the most destructive forces the domain world had ever encountered, he would place the malice spirit, or Li Ling, at the top. Over the past tens of thousands of years, countless destroyers had ravaged the domain world, like the extraterritorial evil clans that had sent thousands of branches to the lower dimensional worlds during the world-ending war. These branches possessed the power to annihilate an entire lower world. Any lower world discovered by them would be turned into mountains of corpses and seas of blood, and the sky would be dyed pitch black. However, in the grand scheme of things, these evil clan branches were not particularly effective. The number of lower worlds was simply too vast. Even after thousands of years, the extraterritorial evil clans had only managed to conquer about half of the lower worlds. Their destructive power was far too slow. Faster than the evil clan branches were the many extraterritorial heavenly emperors who could obliterate a lower world in a single strike. Their destructive power far surpassed that of the average evil clan branch. In recorded history, the places destroyed by the heavenly emperors included several supercontinents in the Great Thousand Worlds and a number of superdimensions in lower worlds. While it would take an evil clan branch centuries to conquer a lower world, the heavenly emperors could destroy a supercontinent or wipe out a super lower world in the blink of an eye. However, compared to the destruction wrought by Li Ling, the heavenly emperors and evil clan branches seemed insignificant. Li Ling had shattered all the lower worlds in an incredibly short time and expanded his destruction to the Great Thousand Worlds and even extraterritorial realms. The devastation caused by Li Ling years ago was so horrifying that it wiped out every being below the heavenly supreme rank in the domain world, leaving only 100 survivors in the wake of that catastrophe. Without a doubt, Li Ling was the greatest butcher and destroyer the domain world had ever known. May I ask? After receiving the task from Luo Li, Li Ling was now ready to confront Xiao Yin at any moment. No one can protect you now. Xiao Yin spoke to the malice spirit, and as his words fell, the entire sky above the domain celestial court suddenly collapsed, with a torrent of heavenly fire descending like a waterfall, rushing toward the malice spirit. Is this the true power of the Flame Emperor? Retreat quickly. As Xiao Yin activated the Skyfire Cascade against the malice spirit, the nearby heavenly supreme experts also sensed the terrifying nature of this power. They had no doubt that this Skyfire Cascade would flatten the entire domain celestial court continent. If they tried to block it, it would be like a mantis trying to stop a chariot. Their only choice was to retreat immediately from the domain celestial court continent. Everyone, you are the esteemed heavenly supremes of the domain celestial court. When you joined, you swore to serve the court to the death. Are you now throwing those vows aside? Just as the powerful experts prepared to retreat, a commanding voice rang out from the main hall of the domain celestial court. It was Luo Li's voice. Hearing this, those who had been about to retreat gritted their teeth, turned around, and, with steely resolve, launched an assault on Xiao Yin from all sides. Boom! The domain celestial court, which had just calmed for a moment, trembled violently again. A terrifying barrage of attacks surged toward Xiao Yin, who was engaged with the malice spirit. Seeing this, Xiao Yin's eyes narrowed slightly. He regretted not having immediately destroyed these annoying flies earlier. Although irritated by the oncoming attacks from all directions, Xiao Yin could not ignore them. He waved his sleeve, and a ring-shaped wave of fire burst forth from his center, colliding with the barrage of attacks. Meanwhile, the malice spirit, engaged with Xiao Yan's Skyfire Cascade, prepared its own counterattack. The malice spirit hovered in midair, drawing a black halo around itself. The halo rapidly expanded until it covered an area of hundreds of thousands of miles, enveloping both Xiao Yin and the many experts of the domain celestial court. Xiao Yin didn't know what the malice spirit intended, but he knew he could not allow it to act freely. At that moment, an unusual scene unfolded. The plane within the black halo began to change, and the black halo, which had encompassed a vast area, transformed into an enormous, smooth mirror. Through this giant mirror, the heavenly fire cascade above was reflected, like two fire dragons racing toward each other. What is this? A mirror? Could this be a world artifact? As the giant mirror formed, some of the experts were taken aback. After all, this was something conjured by the fourth ancestor of the extraterritorial evil clan, the malice spirit. Although it no longer possessed rule power, before becoming a ruler, it was certainly terrifying. I'll see how you plan to withstand this wash. Xiao Yan's eyes narrowed. He wasn't as surprised as the others, but after battling with Su Bo, he understood that every great Dao Walker had a unique skill. Lin Dong had been the supreme master of the heavenly battle will, capable of manipulating all forms of battle will. The ancestor of 10,000 spirits represented the pinnacle of life force, and Su Bo had reached the peak of the space great path, enabling him to create such a compressed space. As a great Dao Walker, the malice spirit's giant mirror was clearly not a world artifact, but a manifestation of its own path. Since this is your Dao, I'll burn it away for you. As Xiao Yin spoke, the Skyfire cascade from above intensified, but at that moment, the malice spirit merely smiled and, with a swift movement, dived into the giant mirror like a fish. You think you can escape my fire? Xiao Yin muttered, watching the malice spirit dive into the mirror. But before he could finish, something unexpected happened. The malice spirit, now inside the mirror, waved its hand, and the giant fire cascade, originally part of the mirror's reflection, began to move. It surged out of the mirror, clashing with the descending firestorm in the sky. When two flame cascades, each containing the power to destroy the heavens and earth, collided with each other, they mutually annihilated one another. At this moment, Xiao Yin found it hard to believe. He never expected that the malice spirit could replicate all his power through a single mirror. The malice spirit, trapped within the mirror, wasn't at all surprised by its ability to copy Xiao Yan's power. This was a special ability granted by the Dao it walked, the Shadow Void Dao, allowing it to solidify the phantom images of anything in this world, including elemental powers. Each lower dimension could correspond to a continent in the Great Thousand Worlds, allowing for dimensional fusion. This was the effect of the Dao working behind the scenes. How is it? Is my counterfeit good enough? The malice spirit, standing within the mirror, looked at the external Xiao Yin and smiled faintly. A counterfeit? Xiao Yin muttered in a low voice. He then slammed his palm down, transforming the flame power of heaven and earth into countless massive flame swords. The power contained in each flame sword made even a heavenly supreme expert's scalp tingle, and their numbers were in the thousands. Since the malice spirit's Dao granted it the power to replicate anything, Xiao Yin wanted to see if this mirror could replicate such a vast number of attacks. Is that so? Upon seeing Xiao Yin unleash a barrage of over 10,000 flame swords, the malice spirit in the mirror chuckled again. With a wave of its hands, all the flame swords reflected by the mirror shot out and clashed directly with the flame swords Xiao Yin had summoned. The resulting explosions sent all the swords into violent eruptions. The surface of the giant mirror was now adorned with thousands of dazzling sparks, but Xiao Yin didn't seem surprised that his attack had been stopped. Instead, he coldly smiled. When the flame swords were destroyed by those counterfeits, the explosions caused a wave of destruction to spread wildly. These waves were formed by distorted space, formless and colorless. Their true purpose, the invisible shockwaves, were Xiao Yan's real goal. Since the colorful flame objects would certainly be blocked by the mirror, how would the colorless, formless forces fare? However, when those destructive shockwaves hit the mirror, Xiao Yan's expression froze. He saw the formless shockwaves pass right through the malice spirit's mirror and fall onto the domain's celestial court below, causing the ground to collapse. Massive chasms were torn open across the land. The only thing left unharmed was the mirror and the malice spirit within it. Could it be an illusory entity? Looking at the undamaged mirror, Xiao Yan immediately understood. The mirror the malice spirit wielded wasn't a physical object, but rather an image that couldn't be directly interacted with. Boom, boom, boom. As Xiao Yan's attack on the malice spirit failed, more than 20 heavenly supreme experts from afar launched another storm of attacks on him. With these attacks bearing down on him, Xiao Yan had no choice but to divert his attention to deal with them. At the same time, to find a way to deal with the malice spirit in the mirror, Xiao Yan continuously attacked the illusory mirror from all directions. Rumble. The clash between Xiao Yan and the malice spirit through the mirror was intense, with each attack from Xiao Yan being single-minded. After confirming its ineffectiveness, he would quickly switch to a new approach. After dozens of rounds of large-scale attacks, Xiao Yan's gaze grew increasingly serious. He still couldn't truly attack the malice spirit within the mirror. Although he had an endless supply of flame power thanks to the heavenly Tao, the existence of the mirror had given the malice spirit an invincible position. If this continued, it would turn into an unending war of attrition. Meanwhile, far away, on a sea in a distant part of the domain's celestial court, massive waves soared, sweeping violently through the waters. The heavens and earth were now shrouded in terrifying battle intent, and the forces clashing were the super battle formations led by Lin Dong, Immortal Venerable, and Qing Tiantang. Minutes had passed since the battle began, and the overwhelming destructive forces had flattened over 10 continents surrounding the domain's celestial court. However, it was the Immortal Venerable and Qing Tiantang's side that had gradually fallen into a disadvantage. Has something gone wrong? While holding off Immortal Venerable and the others, Lin Dong shifted his gaze toward the distant domain celestial court. It seems that the domain celestial court has pulled out all the hidden tricks they have. The mighty martial ancestor should not let his guard down in battle. Just as Lin Dong became distracted by the battle situation at the domain celestial court, the Immortal Venerable and Qing Tiantang seized the opportunity and unleashed all of their battle intent power. The power quickly enveloped martial ancestor. Lin Dong snapped back to his senses, slapping his palm in midair as his world battle will surged wildly. However, this time, he was a step slower than the Immortal Venerable. The Immortal Venerable knew that this was the only chance to turn the tide and suppress Lin Dong. But at that moment, 2 attacks shot from the far horizon, directly colliding with the Immortal Venerable and Qing Tiantang's battle intent offensives. Though the attacks didn't have as much power as the battle intent, they struck at the heart of the offensive and detonated it instantly. Boom, boom. The explosion of both sides' battle intent forces sent Lin Dong and the Immortal Venerable flying back. In that moment, both Lin Dong and the Immortal Venerable realized that someone else had intervened. Who dares? The Immortal Venerable's gaze shifted to the direction of the attack. Just then, 2 figures appeared hastily from the distant sky and landed on the sea. When Lin Dong saw their faces, he froze. Meanwhile, at the domain celestial court, Xiao Yan and the malice spirit were still locked in battle. However, it was clear that Xiao Yan was having a rougher time, as he not only had to face the malice spirit's attacks, but also had to deal with more than 20 heavenly supreme experts. These heavenly supremes had positioned themselves hundreds of thousands of miles away. They knew they couldn't get close to Xiao Yan for fear of being struck down by his overwhelming power. Therefore, they resorted to long-range attacks to disrupt him. Outside the main hall of the domain celestial court, Luo Li watched the chaos unfold with a sense of satisfaction. She turned to Xiao Yan and spoke, "Senior Flame Emperor, from what I see, it's impossible for you to defeat the forces of the domain celestial court. My suggestion is that you withdraw now, and we will ensure you and your people leave in peace. Luo Li will not make things difficult for you." As Luo Li's words spread, All the experts of the domain celestial court intensified their attacks on Xiao, as they knew that if this continued, they might actually be able to force the Emperor of 10,000 Flames to retreat. Xiao's eyes darkened at Luo Li's words. He immediately withdrew all of his flame power. In that instant, the forces of the domain celestial court stopped their attacks, breathing a collective sigh of relief. Was the Emperor of 10,000 Flames really retreating? However, just as everyone thought Xiao would back down, his palm flipped, and a white jade bottle appeared. It was the stagnant heaven bottle. Xiao had decided to go all in. Though he had discovered that the servant was sealed deep underground, Xiao immediately took action. With the ruler's power he had regained, it didn't matter where the servant was. Transferring the servant's location here only required a simple rule. With the servant's location now confirmed, Xiao formed a fist with his 5 fingers and struck the ground. The force of his punch shattered a massive slab of earth, and as it flew into the air, it vanished, replaced by a rule prison glowing with faint firelight. Xiao had exchanged the slab of earth with the entire rule prison beneath the ground. Once the rule prison appeared, Xiao quickly began cracking the rules that bound it, but there were hundreds of rules in place. Lindong, how much time can you hold out? Xiao asked, his gaze heavy as he looked at the intricate web of hundreds of rules. Xun'er and Kailin stood silently by, not daring to disturb him. At most 2 minutes, Lindong replied. 2 minutes, huh? Let's see then. Xiao walked up to the rule prison, then stopped and began trying to unravel the hidden, unknown rules on the prison. Next, Xun'er and Kailin anxiously watched Xiao as he continued to break through the hundreds of rules. Lindong and Ling Qingzhu worked together to delay Luo Li, but despite witnessing this scene, the dozen or so heavenly supremes in the distance did not dare to step forward and intervene. They could only watch helplessly as the situation unfolded. In this tense and heavy atmosphere, 2 minutes passed in the blink of an eye. Time finally reached its limit. At this moment, Lindong and Ling Qingzhu simultaneously released their hold on Luo Li, as they had reached their limits. With her freedom regained, Luo Li immediately took control of the central hub once again. However, she did not act immediately. Instead, she slowly turned around, her gaze falling upon the scene behind her. At that moment, atop the collapsing domain celestial court's main hall, Xiao had successfully shattered the hundreds of rules locking the prison, and the figure imprisoned within had once again emerged into the light. It was Xun'er. But as Xiao released Xun'er, the latter's manic laughter echoed across the entire realm, like the voice of a death god pronouncing the fate of the domain world, rendering everyone speechless. Ha 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 ha, the central herdsman master is gone, and now, all of you are doomed. Ha 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 ha, you foolish and ignorant ones, enjoy the peaceful moments you have left. Xun'er's frenzied laughter reverberated throughout the world, and the chilling menace in his voice made everyone stand frozen in place, their gazes fixed on the figure standing amid the ruins of the hall. Are you the one who's doomed? Luo Li spoke, stepping forward as she flicked her slender finger, sending a beam of spiritual energy directly toward Xun'er. However, the beam was caught by a hand in front of Xun'er and crushed instantly. The one who had made the move was none other than Xiao. Senior Flame Emperor, you want Xun'er's help so badly to seize control of the central hub, don't you? Luo Li said, staring at Xiao. Central hub? What would we need something like that for? Xiao replied dismissively. Did Mu Chen say something to you before he left? Xiao's words left Luo Li in brief silence, before she spoke again. Mu Chen only asked me to show more respect to the two of you. Then I thank him for his respect, Xiao said, stepping forward until he was standing in front of Xun'er. From now on, as long as I'm here, no one in this world will be able to harm a hair on your head. Xun'er remained silent. I can ensure your safety, Xiao said again. Does it matter? Can you protect this world? Xun'er replied. We know you understand many things, so we won't make things difficult for you. We only need you to talk with us, Xiao said to Xun'er. For example, about the matter of the vast expanse. You'd better clean up the mess before you. The vast expanse is no longer something you should be concerned about, Xun'er said, turning to leave. However, at that moment, a voice from behind stopped him in his tracks. We have a glass. The voice belonged to Xiao Yin, but the term glass left everyone confused. Clearly, no one knew what Xiao Yin meant by glass. However, for sure, who had experienced the wars in the vast expanse, these two words caused him to freeze. You should have heard of glass in the vast expanse, right? Xiao Yin said again. Finally, Shi turned around. He looked at Xiao Yin and said, "You cannot possibly have such a thing. Is that so?" Xiao Yin said with a faint smile. He waved his sleeve, and a tremendous firestorm formed a shimmering barrier in the air. Through the flame barrier, everyone saw a towering stone statue of an elderly figure standing on the flat earth. On the statue's shoulder, two childlike figures sat. However, what drew everyone's attention was something else. It was a small piece of glass, suspended above the statue's palm. How did you get something like this?" Shi's voice trembled in disbelief as he gazed at the glass floating within the flame barrier. He had never truly seen such a legendary item from the vast expanse in his entire life. "We don't know why we have something like this, but the reality is that we do have a piece of glass, and we don't know how to use it," Xiao Yin said. "Do you want me to tell you how to use it?" the attendant asked, looking at Xiao Yin. "Clearly, this is the only thing that can help us turn the tide of the battle, right?" Xiao Yin replied. "Then it's too bad." The attendant's answer took Xiao Yin by surprise. "I don't know how to use the glass." "Now, no one can threaten you," Xiao Yin said. "Heh, do you think I'm lying to you?" The attendant smiled. "As far as I know, only pure energy life forms can use this kind of glass in the vast expanse, and only they know how to activate it." Though Xiao Yin wasn't sure if the attendant was telling the truth, he could only ask a different question. "Mu Chun is no longer here, but you still haven't finished what you were going to say to him, right?" At the mention of Mu Chun, the attendant let out a cold laugh, his voice full of sarcasm. "Yes, I only told him two things. There's one more thing I haven't told him, but now it doesn't matter anymore." Upon hearing this, the group in the domain celestial court exchanged glances, while Luo Li fixed her gaze on the attendant, eager to hear what this person would say next. "What exactly does this mean?" "At this point, you don't need to beat around the bush," Xiao Yin said. "How long has it been since the central herdsman master left?" the attendant asked. "More than a month," Xiao Yin replied. "Then you have 3 months left. Make sure to cherish it," the attendant said, turning around and preparing to leave. "This world is going to be destroyed." "Wait." Watching the attendant leave carelessly, completely unconcerned about the fate of the domain world, Xiao Yin shouted, "Even if this world is going to be destroyed, you should still tell us why it's going to happen. Is it that you want to know how you will die?" The attendant stopped but didn't turn around. Instead, he raised a hand, pointing at a bright star in the distant sky, visible even during the day. It was the afterglow from another world, far away. "You saw it about 40 days ago, right?" the attendant asked. "What does this have to do with the fate of the domain world?" Xiao Yin frowned upon hearing this. "Do you know what that is?" the attendant asked. "That's not just the light from the surface of another world. It's a weapon powerful enough to destroy a bubble world. In the vast expanse, some bubble worlds know how to use the central hub to convert a continent or multiple continents into energy, then focus that energy to fire at another world. This attack is quite impressive, and there are many benefits. For example, during the conversion process, a bright light will explode. Its intensity is more than 10 times that of the afterglow on the surface of a bubble world. This light will allow other bubble worlds to see it in advance and misjudge the distance to that world. That's the advantage, the attendant explained. So, the world that Mu Qian is heading to is actually 10 times farther away from the domain world than he estimated? Xiao Yin asked. Exactly, the attendant replied. But there's a downside to this attack. It has extremely poor accuracy. It's hard to aim at a bubble world that keeps moving. So, only beginners in the vast expanse war would use this kind of attack in the beginning. The other world is a beginner? Xiao Yin furrowed his brow. Since this attack has poor accuracy, how can they destroy the domain world? I already told you. The reason it has poor accuracy is because regular bubble worlds can easily dodge this attack. A qualified central herdsman master can use the central hub to correct the world's position. Though they can't adjust the up and down positions, correcting the left and right positions is more than enough to deal with this kind of attack, the attendant said. Our central herdsman master is right here, isn't he? Xiao Yin pointed to Luo Li. Heh, someone who's only been the central herdsman for a little over a month is far from being able to use the central hub's power to correct the position of a world, the attendant laughed. Let me tell you the truth. The central hub itself has 3 locks, and these locks cannot be forcefully undone. The words from Xun'er immediately made Xiao Yin and the others realize why the domain world was waiting for its inevitable end. It was because there was no longer enough time to wait for Luo Li to complete the unlocking. It's such a pity. If the central herdsman master hadn't left, you might have had a chance, Xun'er said with a smile. By the way, just a reminder, don't even think about resisting the attack converted by the central hub with your meager strength. How strong is the attack? Xiao Yin asked. Then, Xun'er's answer left everyone feeling an unprecedented sense of madness. Based on the power of a perfected heavenly supreme in your world, this attack would at least be several 100 billion times stronger. Given 100 years, how would you use them? If you want to live an ordinary life, you could spend the first 20 years enriching yourself, then start a family, and finally spend the rest of your life in comfort with your wife and children beside a warm hearth. If you're lucky, you might live to 100, have many descendants, and pass away peacefully. If you're unlucky, you might lose your way, and even see your family destroyed. If you want to be a hero, you could risk your life in the first half of your life, battling across the heavens and earth, unafraid of dangers, and ultimately become the most dazzling existence in the eyes of all. If you're lucky, you might stand above all others, with people coming from every direction to pay homage, living to 100 and dying with great renown, becoming a legend. If you're unlucky, you could die halfway, becoming a stepping stone for others, leaving behind nothing but regret. Given 10,000 years, how would you use them? Upon seeing this scene, the drifting spirit knew that its task was nearly finished. Though it was just passing time, at least it covered up the boredom. As a pure energy life form, the drifting spirit deeply understood that eternal life could be this boring. Because of immortality, everything loses its meaning. Even something nearly impossible to achieve, the drifting spirit knew it could attempt it endlessly. If the success rate were 1 in 100, why not try 100 million times? Even if each attempt took 10,000 years, completing it 100 million times would only take 1 trillion years. And 1 trillion years was but an infinitesimal fraction of the endless life of the drifting spirit. The drifting spirit had long realized that immortality was the greatest torment. It had long since lost all feelings because of the boredom, and now it sought a way to pass time with some form of amusement. And so, the drifting spirit began recording the events happening in various bubble worlds. It would specifically seek out newly born bubble worlds, then envelop the entire world with its body, starting to record from the fetus stage until the world's eventual destruction. In fact, recording a world didn't take much time. At most, it would take billions of years, and at least, it could take millions or even hundreds of thousands of years. This was how the drifting spirit passed time in the vast expanse of the cosmos. When a world was destroyed, it would hand over its records to the leader of that world. During those moments, the drifting spirit would envy the people of those worlds the most because they could die, whereas it could never die. After recording the birth and destruction of countless worlds, the drifting spirit continued this task, and this time it found the domain world, the shortest-lived world among those it had recorded. Hey, only a little over 300,000 years before it's doomed. What a pity. In the final 40 days, even the Flame Emperor Martial Ancestor had not given up on trying to change the fate of the domain world's destruction. Now, that was interesting. This was the central place of the domain world, the domain celestial court. Nearly 2 months had passed since Xun'er announced the inevitable destruction of the domain world. Looking back, despair had completely shrouded the heavens, suffocating everyone with a sense of hopelessness. Xun'er had been released by Xiao Yin, allowed to go wherever he wished. Luo Li didn't believe Xun'er's words, nor the rumors spreading through the domain world. He, along with those who had once fought alongside Mu Chun, still believed that, just as in the past, Mu Chun would surely create a miracle. Today, the domain celestial court was bustling with activity because a grand summit was taking place, hosted by the two supreme rulers of the domain world, Flame Emperor Xiao and martial ancestor Lin Dong. In the spacious domain celestial court, all the young elites summoned by Xiao and Lin Dong were the best of the remaining next generation in this world. Xiao and Lin Dong wanted to leave the final ember for the domain world. Everyone, I believe you're all clear on the situation at hand. Our world is likely to perish in a little over a month. Standing on the plaza of the domain celestial court, Xiao addressed the group that had gathered in response to the summons. After hearing Xiao words, however, the group seemed to react with little emotion. Perhaps they had already come to terms with the fate that might be approaching. At this moment, Luo Li, along with Jiuyo and others, stood off to the side, observing. They didn't intervene in the meeting between Xiao and Lin Dong, as they still believed that Mu Chun would bring new hope to the domain world. They trusted that Mu Chun would create a miracle. There's something you may not know, and I only learned of it 2 months ago, Xiao continued addressing everyone. During the distant, ancient times, the exact point in time is lost to history, but one thing is certain, our domain world did not yet exist then. However, there was another world, one that was likely facing a crisis much like ours. And in that world, a person called the Supreme Ruler chose to preserve the ember of that world when it faced annihilation. And that ember is what became our domain world. Upon hearing this, the gathered people exchanged glances and smiled faintly, but there was no significant reaction. Yes, I know it sounds like a made-up story. Feel free to dismiss it as absurd. But behind this tale lies a path to survival, leaving this world and venturing into the unknown vastness. There, perhaps, a sliver of hope remains. Xiao said, Senior Flame Emperor, Senior Martial Ancestor, may I ask a question? Long you spoke up. I want to know if that alliance truly received your support and assistance to be formed? The alliance Long you referred to was the Prison Break Alliance, which claimed that by offering 100,000 supreme spiritual liquid, anyone could leave the domain world. However, to them, such a claim seemed utterly ridiculous. Do you really believe something as absurd as that could happen? Lin Dong responded. If anyone were organizing such a thing, it would clearly be a scam. The planners would soon escape with the supreme spiritual liquid they gathered, while everyone else would be left behind. Such a thing really exists. The others were finally shocked by Lin Dong's revelation of the truth. Then why didn't you two stop it? Mu Tianlong asked. Why stop it? Xiao replied. The situation in the domain world has become unavoidable for everyone. Those people have been wallowing in despair. The emergence of this situation, though absurd, has given them a glimmer of hope. It may not be much, but it is not something we should interfere with. Hearing this, the others fell silent. They too were powerless in the face of this kind of issue. It seemed the domain world had sunk to a point where people were relying on such spiritual distractions for a semblance of salvation. However, it's not impossible to leave the domain world. While mindless actions will not lead to survival, I do know of a method. Although it cannot guarantee your safety, it is certainly a more reliable approach than what the Prison Break Alliance is doing. Xiao continued. A way to safely escape the domain world? Xiao words finally piqued the interest of everyone present, though they were also curious. If such a method existed, why had Xiao waited until now to mention it? In the ancient times, a supercontinent from the vast ocean collided with the domain world. Afterward, someone called the Domain King helped us escape. Xiao recalled the ancient tales shared by the Fireboy and Thunderboy. If this story is true, then a separate continent can indeed remain in the vast ocean, even without the protection of the bubble world's blast membrane. Xiao had his own plan. He intended to use memories from his past life to reconstruct some of the continents in the domain world, assembling them into a spherical planet-like world similar to Earth. If this world could successfully float in the vast ocean, it could carry some people out of the domain world. Unfortunately, with the 9 evil sacred emperor gone, following Mu Chun, the task would be much harder. With the 9 evil sacred emperors' help, this plan could have had greater feasibility. If we're not mistaken, Senior Flame Emperor, Senior Martial Ancestor, your plan must be to have us leave the domain world? That's right. The fate of the domain world may already be sealed. If you don't leave now, you'll only be accompanying the burial, Lin Dong said. Big brother, I won't leave the martial realm. Without your guidance, I wouldn't have come this far. Lin Yin said to Lin Dong, since you call me big brother, then as your big brother, this is my command. Not only should you leave, but you must also take Lin Jing and the others with you. Lin Dong said, if big brother doesn't leave, then leave it to second brother. I'll stay behind. Lin Yin persisted, but before he could finish, Lin Dong's cold voice pierced his ears, causing his body to tremble. If you still recognize me as your big brother, then follow my orders. Otherwise, our brotherly bond ends here. Lin Dong's fists were tightly clenched, with blood seeping through his skin due to the force. This decision was incredibly painful for Lin Dong, and severing emotional ties was something he had already done once before, with the head of the Dao sect, Xuanzu. Although Lin Dong had grown immensely since then, and was now one of the few who could stand tall in the world, he still felt inner turmoil. I won't leave either. Bing Huan's figure flashed, appearing in front of Lin Dong, her sharp gaze fixed on him, showing no sign of retreat. Even if you sever our relationship, I won't leave you. I won't leave. Another person had chosen to stay, none other than Tai Peng, the Pangu Supreme of the Boundless Fire Domain. My master is still here. I cannot leave, Tai Peng said. Then take your master with you, Xiao Yin said. In the current Boundless Fire Domain, you are the only one I can trust. If I entrust my wife and children to you, you should know that refusing will destroy their chances of survival as well. Forgive me for being blunt, Domain Lord, but even if we manage to leave the domain world, our actions will be meaningless in the vast ocean. No one is likely to rescue us. We will only die later than others, and that's of no consequence, Tai Peng said. This is your first time standing against me, Xiao Yin said faintly. Apologies, Domain Lord, but this time, I will not leave. You may punish me, Tai Peng said. And the rest of you? If you trust me, I can help you leave now. Xiao Yin turned to the others and asked, I want to stay and wait for Senior Long Luzi and the others to return, Long Yu said. You should know they won't return, Xiao Yin said. I've always heard that the Flame Emperor Senior is someone capable of creating miracles, someone whom the billions of beings in the world can trust. But now, I must admit, I'm a little disappointed, Long Yu said. Upon hearing this, Xiao Yan's eyes narrowed slightly, though he couldn't help but feel a hint of self-mockery. He never imagined he'd reach a point where he felt so helpless against the impending destruction. I'll stay too, Zhang Hongshan said at that moment. Xiao Yin, since my previous life was your ancestor, I think you should respect my ancestor's choice. Xiao Yin remained silent. I won't leave either. Yin Jiang said, destruction has not arrived yet, everything is still unknown, right? Mu Tianlong said, so, I won't leave either. Next, Zhan Shanhe and the others also chose to stay. Soon, all eyes were on Xiao Yin and Lin Dong. Clearly, their plan to preserve the flame of hope had failed. Expected, Xiao Yin sighed helplessly as he looked at everyone who had chosen to stay. In fact, he and Lin Dong had already anticipated that everyone would make this choice. They only wanted to confirm it one last time, as they had something even more drastic planned. Everyone, I ask one last time. If you don't leave now, you might not get another chance. Xiao Yin looked at them and spoke in a deep voice. To the death, we shall defend the domain world. Everyone's response was still unwavering. Whether we can survive depends on this move, Lin Dong said. The people above the domain celestial court also heard his words and began to wonder. Could it be that Xiao Yin and Lin Dong have some final trump card for survival? As everyone was puzzled by this, Xiao Yin stepped forward. He scanned the surrounding world, not looking at Long Yu and the others. Then, he waved his hand, and at the same time, Hong Che's voice echoed across the air. Everyone, reveal yourselves. This is our last gamble. As Xiao Yan's words spread, Long Yu and the others were horrified to see that in the heavens and earth centered around the domain celestial court, thousands of spaces suddenly twisted, and then hundreds of thousands of people appeared from those spaces. And these people were all at or above the Earth's supreme level.